realizes that this is the main problem, and says that to join the organization, you give up your claim as a tribal or otherwise racially defined person. You have to try and decolonize, as it were, your mind. And all I can...
That's right. Christopher Hitchens wants you to decolonize your mind. The context of what you just heard is an interview / Q&A that Christopher Hitchens was given on a talk show in 1985. This was about the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. During this time, Nelson Mandela was still in prison and the apartheid was very much still in power. And he was talking about the ANC, the Anti-Apartheid Party, that in order to join that movement, you needed to renounce your tribal memberships and to decolonize your mind. The context of that, further, is that in Africa, before the intervention of European colonists, Africa was comprised of just many African tribes. And throughout history, and very much including the time period from which Christopher Hitchens is speaking, African tribes considered each other essentially different races. And the apartheid government took advantage of this. And when these nations were essentially just drawn up and the borders made by the European colonial powers, tribes that hated each other were drawn into these maps and didn't see any sort of solidarity with each other, or at least usually didn't. And the apartheid government was able to play races off each other. In fact, a lot of the police force used to crack down on rebel groups like the ANC were comprised of by black officers, because they didn't really see each other as black citizens of South Africa, but as members of the respective tribes. And that part of that movement of decolonization was saying, we're in this together, that we are not different tribes, that we are black citizens of South Africa in this context. So how ironic is it that we're faced with these pseudo-intellectual scumfucks, these specious idiots, that run around saying that we need to reject Western science and decolonize our minds. They've subverted and perverted this phrase, decolonize your mind, for racist and divisive purposes. The absolute counter to what that phrase actually means. We're a very post-racial culture now. That though we have people screaming from the rooftops like chickens with their heads cut off, that systemic racism is a problem, any rational thinking person knows systemic racism doesn't exist anymore. It is written out of law, and where it exists, exists in spite of the rules, and in spite of the culture, and in spite of law, not because of it. It is absolutely, demonstrably not true that systemic racism exists in America. It's false on the face of it. And these people who have a financial stake, whose job it is as radicalized professors and as jackasses and pundits running around on speaking tours, these people have a financial stake in insisting to us that racism is a problem. People like Al Sharpton and now fucking people like Lacey Green. They're telling us, not in the case of Al Sharpton, but very much in the case of a lot of these university yahoos, that we need to decolonize our mind. Why? Because fuck white people. Because everything white is bad. That we need to reject fucking science and medicine because white people originated these methods. And everything white people does is wrong. And everything white people are is evil. And white skin is a curse. which is, of course, projection, because these people insist to everybody, but ultimately to themselves, that black skin is a curse when it's not. How sad is it that at this point, the superficial issue of racism is over and done with, and what needs to be fixed is in the realm of economics, in the realm of public policy, in the realm of culture, but not in terms of racism, but in terms of overcoming issues and changing things. Well, all the black people in the ghetto, why? Because I'll tell you what's not causing it is the jackbooted fucking heel in the neck of the black race by the white man. Okay, that's no longer the case. It is an issue of inertia, but it's not inertia of racism. It's inertia of this is where this many of the black community are, and poverty is difficult to get out of. How do we fix that? And keep in mind that poverty is very difficult to climb out of for white poor as well. Financial mobility, upward mobility in income is incredibly difficult in this country. So if we were to go about solving, say, a problem like that, from that mindset, without these social Marxist fucking retards, these fucking Jackson Pollock painted minded pieces of shit, these subjectivist postmodernist scum fucking rags, okay, need to be dropped out of the conversation because they are not productive. And people like Nelson Mandela and people like Martin Luther King Jr. were productive with messages of unity, not division, and certainly not segregation, and certainly not rejecting science and modern medicine because it was a lot of it was trailblazed by white people. It's fucking absurd. It's fucking sad, and that's racist. Okay? So you just heard from 1985, when the Soviet Union was still around and Nelson Mandela was still in prison, a noted liberal, not progressive, liberal, Christopher Hitchens, saying the phrase decolonize your mind in the context that it was originally intended, which was to come together and reject superficial and useless and non-productive differences in order to work together to solve common problems. Police brutality is not a racial issue. Poverty is not a racial issue. Hell, even gang violence isn't particularly a racial issue. And certainly it would be to the black community's benefit to pursue ending these issues that don't uniquely affect them. So their entire idea of a solution is that racism is the problem and we must end racism by fighting racism with racism is just pure schizophrenic insanity. These people are repulsive and need to be stopped. They are a disgrace. An absolute fucking embarrassment to all of us, and certainly to the people they claim to look up to. Thanks for watching.